Most B2B sales reps aren't taking advantage of cold calling at the frequency they could be. One reason for this is because it's more comfortable to hide behind email and social media. It's true that many people's perception about receiving cold calls is not favorable. It's this perception that creates a tremendous opportunity for you as a B2B sales rep because of a principle that I call drastic contrast. How many times have you received a solicitation call? You can usually spot them in about 2 seconds just after answering the phone. You say hello and there's total silence, and then you say hello again, and then you hear the caller comes off mute and starts reading at you with a script. Many of these calls are poorly placed, it's the truth. And that's what's created this negative perception. So when we receive a call that starts to sound typical like this, that's really what governs how we feel about it. Now here's what's interesting. People will rarely remember what you say, but will always remember how you made them feel. The negative perception is an advantage in this case because of the little time that you have on a cold call, and your prospect's mind is taking advantage of that time to find whatever information that it can to determine how they should feel about your approach. So you can actually make a strong impression with much less effort than otherwise in this case. This is because of drastic contrast, and when you apply it against a negative perception, I can't even begin to tell you how powerful it is. Let me give you an example that's unrelated. Picture yourself living in a neighborhood, and down the street there's a family with a teenage son. You've never talked to this kid before, but when you see him outside, just based on the way he's dressed, your perception is that he's a bad kid and usually up to no good. Every time you see him driving by your house, in your view, he's always going too fast. He's always up to no good. Whether it's true or not, this is just your perception, so this is your reality. Now, picture a Sunday morning, and you see this kid walking past your other neighbor's driveway, who's an elderly woman who lives across the street. And you see him looking up at the house, sort of to determine if someone's there, is what it looks like to you. And then he changes course and he moves towards her mailbox. Now, clearly, he's going to vandalize the mailbox, so you run to get your phone so you can catch it all on video. And when you get back to the window, he's now on your neighbor's front step, and you see him ring the doorbell. As the door opens, you notice that his posture and body language is changing to something more respectful. And then you see him smile as he hands the old woman her mail. Your perception of this kid has just been totally disrupted, and your awareness of that is so apparent because of the drastic contrast between what you witnessed on the front step and then what you were expecting. Now, in the same situation, if you had a favorable perception of this kid, you may have still noticed the random act of kindness, but it wouldn't have resonated with you the same way because the contrast between what happened and what you were expecting isn't drastic enough to trigger the same kind of feeling. If you think about it, what really causes something to be irritating or annoying to you, okay? If you really distill it, it's predictable repetition. So when cold calling prospects, if what you say and how you say it sounds like every other sales call, you're going to inherit the baggage that's associated with the negative perception around cold calls. So to put this into action for yourself, think first about what your prospect would expect from a poorly placed cold call, and then embed the drastic opposite of that into your approach. For example, my prospects are CROs, Chief Revenue Officers, and sales leaders who receive a lot of cold calls from companies just like mine. With that in mind, here's a few things I'd do differently. I never ask how they're doing today. It doesn't come across as genuine because I don't know them, and it sounds like every other sales call that they receive. Instead, I ask if they have a minute, and then I go silent until they respond. After that, I get right to the point, and then I yield back as much of their time as possible. Doing it this way shows my prospects that I'm thoughtful, I know they're busy, and I'm not presumptuous about their time. Think about your prospects. How often do they receive cold calls? How do those calls usually start out? And what do they find most annoying about them? Identify what you feel are the most common patterns, and then craft your approach to demonstrate the polar opposite of that. For example, if I'm calling an executive assistant to a CEO, I'd assume that they get a lot of calls from salespeople treating them like an obstacle and trying to mow through them to get to the CEO. Many of these calls are probably poorly placed. In fact, I know they are. And the assistant can spot them from a mile away, from the very beginning, just when they pick up the phone, they know what it is. I'd also assume that the assistant usually has to ask what the call's regarding and is used to hearing the same kind of routines and runaround from salespeople trying to make it look like it's not a sales call or that they might know the CEO from somewhere. Okay? And how many times do you think the assistant has had that sparring match with salespeople that are trying to get the boss's email address? So with all of that in mind, here's how I'd apply drastic contrast to my approach to ensure a better outcome with the assistant. Assistant, Bob Smith's office, Donna speaking. Me. Hi Donna, my name's Greg Woodward. I'm calling with a question. Do you have a minute? Assistant, do you mean, does Bob have a minute? Me. No, you're fine. Assistant, oh, okay, yeah, I have a minute. Now, at this point in the call, I've embedded subtle courtesy into my approach by asking the assistant if they have a minute, as opposed to jumping right in and being presumptuous about it. And the assistant is used to salespeople trying to push through to get to the prospect. And what I did was the exact opposite of that. So back to the call. Me. Okay, well, I have this letter that we need to put in front of Bob Smith about a development partnership that our firm's establishing with a company in your space. In the letter, there's enough information for Bob to determine if it's something he'd like to discuss. Now, at this point, the assistant is probably expecting the call to take on a familiar pattern, with me asking for Bob's email address, and then the inevitable sparring match that follows when she tells me she can't provide it. Back to the call. Me. I'm wondering if that's something I can send over to you. Assistant. Sure, you can send that to me. My email is... Me. Got it. That's very helpful, Donna. Thank you so much. Would you mind if I call back in a couple days to see if Bob's had a chance to take a look? Assistant. Sure, that's fine. Me. Sounds good, Donna. Have a great rest of the day. Bye. Now, this is just an example, and I've made this call thousands of times. The fact is it usually results in a positive outcome with the assistant happy to direct my communication to the prospect and happy to have me call back shortly afterwards. I almost never receive that, we'll let you know of interested response. People rarely remember what you say and always remember how you made them feel. So on a cold call, there's very little time to engage with prospects. And taking advantage of drastic contrast where a negative perception exists is an incredibly powerful way for you to build rapport inside of a few seconds. And when we do that with prospects, we win.